So, as we start the video, the first thing I'd like to say is to say congratulations for beginning to see the various levels and layers of thought,
Mm-hmm.
kinds of thought.
Mm-hmm.
That, that one of the qualities that we use, let us say, as instructions by the Buddha,
Mm-hmm.
of defining thoughts into two different categories, those that are worthwhile having and those that are not worthwhile having, or wholesome versus unwholesome thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And the criteria is said is unwholesome thoughts will keep us out, or take us away from the wholesome state that we're in, or preventing us from getting into a wholesome state easy. That's why they're called hindrances.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so as we begin to practice and start getting those kinds of thoughts and directed out, we also begin to see something else quite interesting. That is that the thoughts themselves are actually attributes, internal attributes of the five senses that we already have, including the fact that some of our thoughts are actually images,
Mm-hmm.
and that some of our thoughts are also sensations and feelings, and also there's a kind of thought that you could call attention or inspection or investigation or on the alert or looking at something or looking
Mm-hmm.
for something, and that can either be with the eyes or with another sense. But this is also a kind of thinking. And then there's the kind of thinking to where it's verbal, and there's quite a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so being able to see these various kinds of thoughts and their attributes is part of the task of the investigation of the mind.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're not actually studying the thoughts themselves, we're studying actually the container of those thoughts in the sense of this is how that thought actually presents itself as um, a factor of the input device.
Yeah.
In other words, humans don't generally think in
They don't think in what?
microwaves.
Okay.
Why don't humans think in microwaves?
What do you mean?
Well, that means that we really don't have a receiver of microwaves so that we can receive and interpret and make sense out of microwaves so that we can even have the thought about them. It's a kind of input that we cannot deal with
Mm-hmm.
beyond our senses.
Mm-hmm.
When we recognize that, we begin to recognize, wait a minute, we don't pick up very much. There's a heck of a lot going on that we don't know about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sometimes in strange and curious ways, but that we can begin to inspect the mind in the sense of that which comes up. But we're doing it in the way of dissecting it for discharge
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to a sacred item to keep.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and that, in fact, that's one of the problems that many meditators have, is they get in, let us say, into a new practice or into a new game of inspecting the hindrances while they're still in hindrance,
Okay.
and that's not the correct way of practice, because if you're in hindrance while you're studying the hindrance, one of the likely things that's to happen is the hindrance is just going to take you off into bad feelings or into a worse state. But
Mm-hmm.
that's already hindering us from being in a very good state,
Mm-hmm.
a state of pleasure, a state of joy.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the real point of getting out of the hindrances, is to get out of them, because it's really a relief.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what a relief it is.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
in that regard, feeling it as a relief, we can see that the change then of the thinking is from the thinking about the hindrance
To read it to you, love.
into like setting down a physical object and sitting on it, like a sack of wheat or something like that. And we just take it off the shoulder and set it down and then sit on it and relax. That's the kind of way that and what a relief it is to set that burden down. And so a lot of what our practice is to wake up to all the burdens that we're carrying in the mind at any particular moment. And as we do, we can begin to find out when, where, why, and how we picked up that stuff and why we keep picking it up. And then we set it down and then pick it up again. And set it down. Now we see what it is before we can set it down and not pick it up so often anymore. Hardly at all anymore. Only occasionally. And now that point goes for not only just the hindrances, but ultimately um, the deeper fetters. That we actually deal with the hindrances first, and then we deal with the deeper feelings and fetters the same way we deal with the hindrances. But now we've got the kind of skills that we need to do that. Right? So this is the way of thinking about practice. The first thing that needs to be done is sati, to wake up.
Yep.
Once we wake up, the next thing we do is we take the effort to take a deep breath. That's going to take some effort in the beginning and on into practice. Eventually it becomes automatic. It's just automatically you start taking a deep breath. In fact, you could say that instead of thinking to deep breathe, the thinking starts with the deep breathing. It's that quick and automatic.
Yeah. Yeah, I see what you're saying. It's like with the association, the more and more that the deeper and deeper that association goes, it's sort of like layers of sediment, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like it just sort of
So,
happens. It's like when I see a police car on the other side of the road, I automatically look at the speedometer. You know, I don't have to think about looking at the speedometer, it just happens.
all right. Here's another example. The guy walks into his house, opens the front door in the dark, and he sees a snake right there in the middle of the floor.
Ah, yeah.
And then he turns the light on and he sees that it's the belt that he took off.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But even after we see the belt taken off, still that heart racing is going to be there.
Yeah.
Okay, it's very interesting to notice that that a fright lasts longer, even if it's a reality check. I mean, we wrongly assume something, but we assume something. We assume danger. We we get afraid and tense and uptight, and then we see that we were wrong completely. There's no danger there at all. Still, that the sense of danger lingers at a
Yeah.
very strong level for a while. Heartbeat still racing. Okay, for 10, 20 seconds or whatever until the adrenaline gets out. Well, that adrenaline coming out, it comes out at about the same amount of time, but it doesn't have to be an adrenaline that's really, really big, like mistaking a belt for a snake and thinking that it's a snake. That even just little thoughts, little making mistakes that we make. And then we feel bad, we feel afraid, but not very much. But then that feeling lingers for a while. And what a relief it is when that stuff dwindles away too, because we haven't allowed any unwholesome thoughts into the mind, so that we, after a few breaths, can begin to really relax and feel good. Wow, how nice this is. So we have to just allow that. That's almost, um, let us say that at least for a long while, that's actually the goal, is to be able to get into that state and maintain that state. And this state that we're talking about, actually, the Buddha refers to as first jhana, and it has a number of clear factors. The most important one is that we have the attitude, I can do this and it's nice. Wow, this is really nice. I really
Mhm.
like it.
Mhm.
That's the major quality of the first jhana,
Mhm.
is deep pleasure. Now, this pleasure that we're talking about in the Pali is actually the opposite of the word dukkha. Okay, dukkha is
So,
dissatisfaction, but what we're doing is practicing, actively practicing, getting ourselves into a state of satisfaction.
mhm.
This is that which needs to be practiced. In several different places, it's really mentioned, especially in the Anapanasati Sutta, that this is a training to be done, to train the mind into the sukha, into the state of satisfaction.
Mhm.
Now, in English, we have a wide vocabulary. And so, whichever item of this vocabulary works for any individual, that's great. But in fact, when the student begins to practice correctly, they see, yeah, the state is beyond even the word that we're talking about when we use joy, satisfaction, relaxation.
Mhm.
But in fact, some students will say, well, gladdening the mind sounds like a lot of work. And so I'll just relax instead. Well,
Mhm.
it's the same thing. It's just a different point of view, you see.
Mhm.
And so this is the way that we can do that only when the mind has become free from whatever burden it was carrying around that we call the hindrance.
Mhm.
This is the state that we want to keep getting the mind back into over and over and over again. And this is the training then of sati. That sati is the number one skill. What is that? To wake up, to see the dukkha. And in the way that we work with it, it's when we recognize that the mind has wandered away from the breathing. In other words, you just woke up and say, oh, yes, I'm not watching the breath. Then we come back and start watching the breathing again. Because then the hindrances will still be there. And now we can see that thing and say, out,
Mhm.
out. So that's another way of practicing. Some people wake up and see the hindrances and throw it out and then take a deep breath. But it's also possible to go right into the deep breath and then throw the hindrance out. But we have to do both of those things. We have to both gladden the mind, which is the throwing it out, which
Mhm.
is the relaxation, as well as taking the deep breath.
Mhm.
Both of these things together will clear the mind and make it fit for work. So now we can really do a good inspection.
Mhm.
And then the last item on the list of four, which we'll go over, is right attitude. That we begin to change the attitude of the normal mind. In fact, you can begin to understand that the attitude that you have, even now from time to time, is a hindrance to you actually being joyful. An example of that is a lot of people don't want to give themselves permission. They don't think that they're quite up to being able to feel good when they want to. That somehow we're not up to the task. But you are.
Mhm.
And when you know that you can do it, then it's a whole lot easier to do it because you know you can do it. But if it seems hard, it will be hard. So no need to make it hard when in fact it's all a matter of attitude anyway.
Mhm.
Mm.
Mhm.
And so which attitude would you prefer? The attitude of a victim or the attitude of a winner, a lion?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So that has to do with that can do attitude. I can do
Yeah.
this. I'm
Mhm.
up to the task. I can clean out the mind.
Mhm.
I can keep the mind cleaned out. I can sit here and deep breathe and feel really good.
Mhm.
And then I can begin to maintain that. How do we maintain it? Is by making sure that the kind of thoughts that we're having, we're not going to try to stop thinking, but we're going to make sure that we investigate the thoughts that we're having while we're taking long, deep breaths.
Mhm.
That we only need to, we need sati, but we only need sati twice for each breath. Once on the in breath to understand this is a long, deep breath, and then another point of sati to recognize this is a long, deep out breath.
Mm-hmm.
After that, the mind is free to do a lot of stuff, including this investigation of the thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Or we can actually do an investigation of the environment. Spend time thinking about, not, yeah, I'm saying the word think about, at a deeper level, think about the feelings, about the arm, about the sensations of the body, about the rise
Mm-hmm.
and the fall of the chest, and getting really familiar with the body. That's another whole quality of thought
Mm-hmm.
that's wholesome
Mm-hmm.
because it's in the here now and it's associated with the body and the breathing.
You want some of those things or not?
How the body feels, and eventually your emotions.
Mm-hmm.
So these are all things that need to be investigated, but it's
Come and
much
fix up
better
your
to
bag, Ginge.
investigate them when the mind is really, really still, really pure, really free from hindrances.
Yeah.
That's what the point is
Yeah.
get ourselves into a really, really nice state.
Mm-hmm.
Then be
Mm-hmm.
vigilant. Start watch
Mm-hmm.
what's going on. Wow, we'll find all kinds of things happening.
Mm-hmm. I think of definitely getting there. It's just about maintaining it for and knowing exactly how I got there. Because sometimes it's like, oh, I try to get back there and I try to think back on what I've done, and it's just sort of I've haphazardly done the right thing by chance, and all of a sudden ended up there.
Well, the intentional thing has to do with the quality of thoughts that you're building it with.
Mm-hmm.
Because right kind of thinking or right kinds of thoughts will, in fact, help you to feel good.
Mm-hmm.
This is what is meant by the gladdening of the mind. So,
Mm-hmm.
I caught you.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, what a relief it is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wow, this is nice. Oh, this feels so good. Okay, these are the kind of thoughts to have.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, this is a good breath.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and so we're
We're sort of
gladdening the mind. We're picking
like
the mind up.
setting the puncher up in the right way so as to sort of get to that point. You know, it's just sort of throwing a whole bunch of concepts against the wall and wholesome concepts and ideas against the wall, and it sort of naturally proliferates in that direction.
Yes, so long as they're wholesome.
Yeah.
That's the key,
Mm-hmm.
is to make sure that they're wholesome and that the unwholesome thoughts are dispensed with quickly.
Mm-hmm.
That the wholesome thoughts
Can you
are
open
worth
that level? Would
keeping,
you like
thinking
me to?
about,
It's a
pursuing,
full top, is it?
Mm-hmm.
investigating. And so for now, I'll leave you with the understanding of what is wholesome and not wholesome, because that's your job.
Yep.
Part of the investigation, and that's the criteria. Is this going to lead to dukkha or is this going to lead to sukha?
Okay. Yep.
Okay? So, I hope to see you again soon. Maybe we can see each other quicker than last
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Now that I've got the ball rolling again. I've been sitting again, so it's all proliferating in a good way. All right. I'll
Okay,
see you soon.
Jacob.
See you, Dhammarato.
All right, well, we'll see you.
Good to talk.